Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to do a deep dive into a topic that's, well, super important, and maybe, let's be real, kind of tough to talk about sometimes. Teenage mental health.
It's definitely a big one.
It is. Our source material for this deep dive is Inner Fusion.
Okay.
It's a podcast made for teens, and we're going to unpack their advice for navigating, all the ups and downs of being a teenager. Whether you're a teen yourself, or maybe you're a parent, or just someone who wants to get this, I think you'll find some helpful stuff here.
Yeah, for sure.
One of the things Inner Fusion talks about right away is how common it is for teenagers to feel overwhelmed. Like they describe it as this roller coaster of feelings. I'm curious, have you ever felt that way?
Absolutely. I think it's, important to remember that those really intense emotions teens experience, they're totally normal.
Yeah.
It's a time of massive change, both physically and mentally. And what's kind of cool here is that Inner Fusion suggests journaling as a tool to help teens understand those emotions better. Not just Dear Diary stuff, but as a way to track moods and kind of, figure out what patterns are there.
That's interesting because it's not just venting, right?
Right.
It's about actually getting curious about your own emotional landscape.
Yeah.
Do you find that teens are open to that kind of self-reflection?
More than you might think. Yeah. When it's framed as a way to kind of gain control rather than just, dwell on your feelings, journaling can be really empowering.
Okay.
It's like a detective's notebook for your own mind, helping you connect the dots between, say, a stressful event and a spike in anxiety.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. So it's not just about feeling better, it's about understanding why you feel the way you do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that understanding is key to building resilience, which is, essentially the ability to bounce back from challenges. Think of it like this. If you understand why you get stressed, you can start to develop strategies, for managing that stress more effectively.
Oh, okay. Inner Fusion also spends a good chunk of time talking about self-care.
Yeah.
And it's not just about bubble baths and face masks, although those are nice too.
Right, of course.
They really emphasize the importance of sleep, diet, and exercise, especially for teenagers.
Yes. And I think sometimes people really underestimate how much those basic things impact mental health, Right. We often talk about self-care as if it's like a luxury, but it's truly foundational,
Right.
Especially during the teen years when the brain is still developing, Those healthy habits.
Crucial. So it's not just about looking good or fitting in.
No.
It's about giving your brain the fuel it needs to function at its best.
Precisely. Think about it. If you're running on empty, your emotions are just going to be all over the place. You're more likely to feel irritable, anxious, or just plain exhausted.
Okay. So taking care of your physical needs is a big part of that self-care equation. And that makes sense because if you're not feeling good physically, it's going to be that much harder to feel good mentally and emotionally too.
Exactly. And the source also points out that those healthy habits can help build self-compassion.
Oh, okay.
Which is, something we often overlook. Treating yourself with kindness, especially when you're struggling, can be a game changer.
Can you elaborate on that a little more? Yeah. What exactly does self-compassion look like in practice?
Well, it's about acknowledging your feelings without judgment.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that everyone makes mistakes.
Right.
And that doesn't make you a bad person.
Yeah.
And it's about treating yourself with the same care and understanding that you would offer, a close friend.
So instead of beating yourself up over a bad grade or a social fumble, it's about saying, hey, I'm learning and I'll do better next time.
Exactly. It's about giving yourself permission to be human.
Yeah. That's really helpful. So we've talked about understanding our emotions, building resilience, and taking care of ourselves physically. Now, Inner Fusion also dives into the world of relationships,
Oh, yeah.
Specifically, they emphasize the importance of supportive friendships for teenagers.
Yeah, and I think this is a really important point because during adolescence, peer relationships take on a whole new level of importance.
Right.
Friends become confidants, sounding boards, sources of validation. Having that strong support system can make a huge difference in a teenager's life.
Absolutely. Inner Fusion also touches on the flip side of that, which is toxic relationships.
Right.
And it's something that I think a lot of adults struggle with.
Oh, for sure.
And I imagine it's even more challenging for teenagers who are still figuring out who they are and where they fit in.
Right. And that's why it's so important to empower teenagers with the tools to recognize and address those unhealthy relationships.
Yeah.
Interfusion suggests that the first step is understanding your own emotions.
Oh, wow.
Those patterns we talked about earlier.
So if you're consistently feeling like drained or anxious after spending time with someone, that's a red flag. But how do you help teenagers differentiate between a friend having a bad day
Yeah.
and a truly toxic pattern?
That's a great question, and it's where open communication with trusted adults comes in.
Okay.
Parents, teachers, counselors, they can all play a role in helping teens kind of decipher those mixed signals.
Right.
And develop healthy boundaries.
That makes sense. Interfusion also stresses the importance of communication with family, even though it can be difficult at times.
Oh, yeah.
It seems like they're really pushing for open dialogue across the board.
Yes, and I think that's crucial because when teenagers feel comfortable talking to their parents or other trusted adults about what they're going through, they're more likely to reach out for help when they need it. It's about creating that safe space where they feel heard and understood.
Okay, so we've covered self-care, relationships, and the importance of open communication. Now let's talk about something that's pretty much unavoidable for teenagers these days.
Yeah.
Social media. Interfusion doesn't shy away from this topic.
Yeah.
They acknowledge how comparison on social media can be a real trap for teens, often leading to those feelings of inadequacy. Have you noticed this in your work with teenagers?
Absolutely. Social media often presents like a curated version of reality, the highlight reel,
Yeah.
without the bloopers or the behind the scenes struggles.
Right.
And when teenagers are constantly bombarded with images of seemingly perfect lives, it's easy to feel like they're falling short.
Right. And I think it's important to remember that those perfect images, they're often, carefully constructed and edited. They don't reflect the full picture of anyone's life.
Exactly. And that's why Interfusion emphasizes the importance of media literacy, helping teens understand how to critically evaluate what they see online.
Right.
And develop a healthy skepticism towards, those glossy portrayals of perfection.
So instead of just passively scrolling through, endless feeds, it's about teaching teenagers to question what they see.
Right.
To recognize the filters and the fakery, and also to remember that everyone has struggles, even if they don't share them online.
Precisely. And that's where building self-compassion comes back into play.
Yeah.
It's about reminding yourself that you are enough, just as you are, even if your life doesn't look like a perfectly curated Instagram feed.
That's a great point. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here, but we've only just scratched the surface of what Interfusion has to offer.
One thing that struck me as we were talking about social media is how closely it ties into the next section of Interfusion coping mechanisms.
Okay.
The podcast emphasizes that these aren't just for when you're in crisis.
Right.
But tools everyone can use to build resilience.
It's like having a mental toolkit, right?
Exactly.
You've got your go-to strategies for dealing with stress, anxiety, just those everyday, ups and downs. What are some of the specific coping mechanisms that Interfusion recommends?
They list a bunch, but some that stand out to me were deep breathing exercises,
Okay.
mindfulness, and creative outlets like art or music.
Okay.
What's fascinating is that these practices actually have physiological effects.
Yeah.
Deep breathing, for example, can slow your heart rate, lower blood pressure.
So it's not just about feeling better in the moment.
Right.
There's actual science behind it.
Exactly.
I know some people might roll their eyes at things like deep breathing, thinking it's too simple to be effective. What would you say to them?
I'd say give it a try. It's free, it's accessible, and it really can make a difference.
Yeah.
Mindfulness is another powerful tool Interfusion talks about, and it's really about paying attention to the present moment without judgment. It can be as simple as noticing the sensations of your breath or the sounds around you.
It sounds like mindfulness is a way to kind of step out of that constant mental chatter.
Yes.
That could be so overwhelming, especially for teens.
Exactly. And the research on mindfulness is pretty impressive. Studies have shown it can reduce stress, improve focus, even boost compassion.
Wow, that's great.
Hmm.
And what about those creative outlets? How do those fit into the like coping mechanism picture?
Engaging in activities you enjoy,
Thanks.
whether it's, painting or playing music or writing,
Yeah.
can be incredibly therapeutic. It allows you to, express yourself, process emotions, and tap into a sense of flow where you lose track of time and just kind of get lost in the activity.
It sounds like a way to kind of recharge and de-stress.
Mm-hmm.
Interfusion also makes a point of saying that, seeking professional help is always an option and definitely not a sign of weakness.
Absolutely.
I think that's so important for teens to hear because there's still a lot of stigma around mental health.
Absolutely. And normalizing the idea of seeking help is crucial.
Yeah.
Sometimes we need a little extra support to navigate life's challenges, and that's perfectly okay.
Right.
A therapist can provide that safe space to talk about what's going on, develop coping skills, and work through those difficult emotions.
It's like having a coach for your mental health.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay. So we've talked about coping mechanisms and seeking professional help. Interfusion also spends some time on goal setting,
Mm-hmm.
but they're not like talking about becoming an overachiever or anything.
Yeah.
It seems more about building confidence and self-efficacy.
Right. And they emphasize the importance of setting realistic goals, breaking them down into smaller steps, and celebrating those small wins along the way.
Okay.
What's interesting is that they tie this back to self-compassion. It's not about beating yourself up if you don't achieve everything perfectly.
So it's about setting yourself up for success
Mm.
by creating achievable goals
Yeah.
and then acknowledging your efforts regardless of the outcome.
Exactly. And that sense of accomplishment, no matter how small,
Yeah.
can boost self-esteem and motivation.
Now, this next one might seem a little like counterintuitive,
Okay.
especially if you're feeling down.
Yeah.
But Interfusion talks about the power of gratitude.
Oh, yeah.
It's not about ignoring problems, it's about shifting perspective.
I love this part. Gratitude is such a powerful practice, and it's backed by science. Studies have shown that regularly practicing gratitude can lead to increased happiness, improved sleep, even a stronger immune system.
Wow, those are some pretty impressive benefits.
Yeah.
But how do you cultivate gratitude, especially when life feels tough?
Interfusion suggests a simple practice.
Good.
Each day, write down 3 things you're grateful for.
Okay.
It could be anything from, a sunny day to a delicious meal to a kind gesture from a friend. The key is to really focus on those things and savor those positive feelings that they evoke.
I like that it's a simple practice that can be like easily incorporated into your daily routine.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't have to be limited to writing, right? You could also share what you're grateful for with a friend or family member or even just reflect on it silently.
Exactly. It's about finding what works for you and making it a consistent practice. And even on those really challenging days, there's always something to be grateful for.
Right.
Even if it's just a warm bed or a roof over your head.
It's about finding those like glimmers of light even in the darkness.
Yeah.
Okay, we've talked about coping mechanisms, goal setting, gratitude, and seeking professional help. Interfusion wraps up by stressing the importance of education, but not just in a like traditional school sense.
Right. It's about actively seeking knowledge about mental health.
Yeah.
Understanding how your brain works, recognizing the signs of stress or anxiety, and knowing where to find resources and support.
It's about becoming an informed advocate for your own mental well-being.
Exactly. And that knowledge can be incredibly empowering.
Yeah.
It can help you break down stigma, challenge misconceptions, and advocate for yourself and others.
And where do we even begin with this education? Where can teens, parents, really anyone who's interested, find reliable information about mental health?
There are so many great resources out there. Organizations like the National Alliance on Mental Illness and AMI, the American Psychological Association, APA, have websites packed with information.
Okay.
There are also, countless books, podcasts, even documentaries that explore various aspects of mental health.
Right.
And of course, school counselors and trusted adults can provide guidance and support.
It's about finding what resonates with you and being curious, right? Learning about mental health can be a lifelong journey, and it's never too late to start.
Absolutely. And I think what's so great about Interfusion is that it presents this information in a way that's relatable and accessible to teenagers. You
Yeah.
know, it's not about lecturing or preaching. It's about having an open and honest conversation.
And that's so important, because when we create a safe space for these conversations,
Yeah.
we open the door to understanding, empathy, and support.
Exactly. And that's what ultimately creates a more compassionate and supportive world for everyone. You know, it's interesting as we're talking about education. I keep thinking back to that point about self-compassion.
Yeah,
It seems like that's really the underlying message of Interfusion.
I agree. It's woven throughout all the different topics we've discussed, from coping mechanisms to goal setting to social media. It's this idea that you are worthy of kindness, even when you're struggling, even when you make mistakes.
It's about treating yourself with the same grace and understanding that you would offer a close friend.
Right.
And I think that's a really powerful message for teenagers who are often so hard on themselves.
Absolutely. And I think that's a message that all of us, regardless of age, could benefit from hearing. So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with this question.
Yeah.
What's one act of self-compassion you can offer yourself today?
Maybe it's, taking a break when you feel overwhelmed, forgiving yourself for a mistake, or simply acknowledging your efforts and progress.
Those are all great suggestions. And remember, small acts of self-kindness can have a ripple effect, not just on your own well-being, but on the world around you.
Mm.
Okay, so as we wrap up our deep dive into Interfusion, I keep thinking about how valuable this is for teens. I wish I had this like when I was a teenager, going through all that.
Oh yeah, totally. Like it's so great to see something that talks about mental health in such a straightforward way,
Yeah.
And it's relatable, it's not preachy.
Exactly. It covers so much, from understanding your emotions, building resilience, to navigating, relationships and social media and all of that.
It's a lot. Yeah.
I think there's really something in here for everyone, whether you're a teenager dealing with anxiety or you're a parent trying to figure out what your kid is going through.
For sure. And one of the things that really stand out to me is this emphasis on self-awareness.
Oh, yeah.
Interfusion encourages teens to pay attention to their thoughts, their feelings, their behaviors, and to recognize how those are all connected.
It's like they're giving teens the tools to become like their own mental health advocates.
Exactly. And that self-awareness is so crucial for recognizing those early warning signs of, stress or anxiety or depression, and knowing when to reach out for help.
Right. Interfusion also talks about the importance of self-care, which honestly I think we all overlook sometimes.
Oh, totally. Especially when we're feeling overwhelmed.
Yeah.
It's easy to get caught up in everything, the hustle and bustle of life, and just forget to take care of ourselves.
Right.
But as Interfusion points out, self-care isn't selfish. It's essential.
Yeah.
It's about replenishing our energy, reducing stress, and nurturing our emotional and mental health.
And it doesn't have to be like this big complicated thing, right?
Yeah.
It could be as simple as taking a few deep breaths, listening to some music, spending time in nature,
Exactly. It's about finding what works for you
Right.
and making it a regular part of your routine.
Yeah.
And remember, self-care isn't a one-size-fits-all. What works for one person might not work for another.
Right.
It's about experimenting and finding, what brings you joy, what helps you feel more grounded and centered.
I love that. It's about giving yourself permission to really prioritize your own well-being.
Exactly. And I think that's a really empowering message, especially for teenagers who are, they're often getting all these messages about achieving and performing and fitting in.
Yeah.
And Interfusion reminds them, it's okay to slow down. It's okay to take breaks. It's okay to just be.
And to be kind to yourself along the way.
Absolutely. That theme of self-compassion runs throughout the whole podcast.
Yeah, it does.
It's about treating yourself with the same care and understanding that you would offer a close friend.
And recognizing that you're worthy of love and acceptance, even when you make mistakes or fall short of your own expectations.
Exactly. It's about embracing your imperfections and celebrating your strengths.
So As we wrap up this deep dive into inner fusion, I want to leave you with one final thought. It's a quote from the podcast that really stuck with me. You are not your thoughts. You are the observer of your thoughts.
Oh, that's such a good one. It's a powerful reminder. It's about recognizing that we have the power to choose how we respond to those thoughts and feelings, you know? We don't have to be ruled by them.
And when we can step back and just observe our thoughts without judgment, we create space for compassion, understanding, and ultimately, like, greater peace of mind.
Absolutely. It's a practice, you know? It takes time and effort, but the rewards are so worth it.
So deep divers, I hope this deep dive has been helpful and informative. If you're interested in, learning more about teenage mental health, I encourage you to check out Innerfusion and the other resources we've mentioned. And remember, you're not alone on this journey. There's help available, and there's always hope. Thanks for joining us.